Allan Kardec, through his systematic codification of communications from the spiritual world, did more than merely describe an afterlife. He unveiled a detailed cosmic atlas of spiritual existence, a profound map that sorts the entirety of consciousness into 7 distinct categories of inhabited worlds. This revelation fundamentally changes the concept of eternal destiny, transforming it from a binary choice of heaven or hell into an infinite ladder of evolutionary progress determined solely by our internal moral state. The moment the physical heart ceases its beat, the spirit is immediately faced with the reality of its own vibrational frequency, and this frequency acts as an absolute, uncompromising magnet, drawing the soul to the plane that matches its level of refinement. This process, as illuminated in the Spirit's book, is the ultimate expression of divine justice, operating not through arbitrary reward or punishment, but through the universal, unyielding law of affinity. If you have ever felt the chilling, inexplicable presence of a loved one who has passed, or experienced dreams of the departed that felt more tangible than waking reality, know that these sensations are but faint echoes of the vast, complex, and populated spiritual universe that awaits us all. The disturbing yet liberating truth documented by Kardec is that destiny is not a lottery. It is an equation where moral effort is the only variable. He revealed that the current vast majority of incarnated humanity is destined to rotate primarily within the first 3 of these 7 worlds, a sobering fact that underscores the magnitude of the evolutionary challenge that still lies ahead for our planet. To understand these worlds is to hold the compass to your own future, and to recognize that the effort you put into kindness, compassion, and self-mastery today is the very currency that buys your passage to higher, brighter spheres tomorrow. Primitive consciousness, the first steps of the spirit. At the very genesis of the spiritual journey are the primitive worlds, designated by Kardec as the inaugural platform for consciousness, the cosmic nurseries, where the spirit first begins to stir from its primordial state. These are not worlds known for their physical beauty or technological sophistication, but rather for their simplicity and the dominance of raw, survival-driven instinct. The spirits who animate these planets are often experiencing their first significant cycles of incarnation, having previously existed in rudimentary forms of life, forms where the nascent principle of intelligence was deeply submerged and passive. Imagine a being that, for countless epochs, lived almost entirely by the dictates of biological need, entirely unaware of any capacity to choose between altruism and selfishness, operating merely as an expression of instinctual impulse. The great miracle of the primitive world is the dawning of the moral sense. It is the breathtaking moment when the spirit gains, for the very first time, the ability to perceive the difference between the greater good and the lesser self, marking the true commencement of their eternal evolutionary journey. Kardec described this as the earliest stages of the spirit's ascent, a profound awakening that requires a controlled and safe environment. These planets serve as protected laboratories, watched over by the highest intelligences, where the fledgling consciousness learns the basic, fundamental laws of the universe. The transition from pure instinct to the ability to reason, however limited, is the singular purpose of these initial incarnations. Yet even this initial level of existence contains an inherent truth. Progress is never guaranteed. Upon disincarnation, the spirits emerging from the primitive worlds do not automatically ascend. A rigorous spiritual assessment, a relentless test of the soul's newfound capacity for choice, determines if the slight flicker of moral awareness gained is strong enough to permit an incarnation on a world of trials, or if the spirit must repeat lessons in similar, less demanding environments to solidify its foundation before facing the complex moral challenges of a sphere like Earth. The lessons here are basic, yet they form the unbreakable cornerstone upon which all future progress will be built, ensuring that the spirit's ascent is founded on self-acquired experience, not mere decree. Earth as a school, worlds of expiation and trials. Our own planet, Earth, stands as a quintessential example of the second category, the worlds of expiation and trials. This designation strips away all romantic notions of our current existence, casting Earth in its truest light as a rigorous, unyielding academy dedicated to the purging of accumulated spiritual imperfections and the acquisition of hard-won moral virtues. Kardec's inquiries revealed that the intense suffering, the widespread injustice, and the relentless biological pressures we face are not divine whims, but direct consequences of the spiritual state of its majority inhabitants. The souls who gravitate here, including every one of us, are debtors in the cosmic sense, returning to face the consequences of past selfish actions or to proactively take on demanding challenges essential for their rapid spiritual advancement. It is a fundamental truth that no spirit is born here by accident. Each life, with its unique set of challenges, be they crushing poverty, chronic illness, devastating loss, or complex familial conflicts, is meticulously pre-approved by the spirit itself, often with the guidance of higher mentors, as the most efficient curriculum for its growth. Before drawing our first breath, we essentially agree to a cosmic contract, willingly plunging into the very experiences that will forge character in the intense heat of tribulation. This planned nature of suffering explains why some individuals seem to endure disproportionate hardships. They are undertaking an accelerated course, choosing the fastest, if most painful, path to purification. The experiences of expiation, paying old debts through suffering and trials, voluntarily facing difficult moral choices, are inextricably intertwined in this world. The environment itself, characterized by the persistent conflict between good and evil, serves as the perfect crucible. However, the path of the spirit leaving Earth is highly variable. Since we live amongst both deeply compassionate and fiercely selfish souls, the magnetic pull upon death is diverse. For many who retain overwhelming earthly attachments and unrepented vices, the next immediate destination is not the peace of a higher world, but a descent into an intermediate zone where their mental state becomes their prison, where joy prevails, exploring the happy worlds. Moving significantly higher up the evolutionary ladder, the fifth category unveils the magnificent reality of the happy worlds, spheres where the principle of unconditional good reigns supreme and spontaneously. These planets represent the triumph of collective morality, places where the destructive forces of war, self-interest, and hatred have been eradicated, not by force of law, but by the natural internalized disposition of every resident spirit. According to Kardec's communicants, society on these worlds operates with seamless harmony, where every action is intuitively geared toward the benefit of the community, rendering complex legal or penal systems utterly redundant. The incarnation process here is entirely transformed. Spirits choose to be reborn, not out of karmic necessity or debt repayment, but purely for the joy of learning and the opportunity to acquire new experiences that further enrich their vast understanding of the universe. Life is viewed as a perpetual, delightful university, where the pursuit of knowledge is an unparalleled pleasure, divorced from any sense of tedious obligation. The material and the spiritual are flawlessly integrated. Technology, developed by spirits of immense moral purity, is used exclusively to serve others and to facilitate spiritual communion. Imagine a civilization where thought alone can effect creation, where travel across vast distances is achieved instantly, through mental concentration, and telepathic communication with beings from other planetary systems is commonplace. These evolved beings are, in fact, the architects of cosmic progress, acting as the profound, inspiring forces behind the great moral and scientific breakthroughs that occasionally ripple through less developed worlds like Earth. When humanity suddenly discovers an invention that alleviates suffering or embraces a movement that promotes universal justice, these moments are often the result of powerful telepathic transmissions of wisdom from the residents of these happy worlds, who serve as unwavering beacons of light and hope across the cosmos. The next horizon, the transition to regenerative worlds. The regenerative worlds constitute the fourth vital stage in the cosmic hierarchy, representing the moment of profound shift, an essential evolutionary bridge between the suffering of expiation and the peace of the higher spheres. These planets are defined by a singular, crucial characteristic. While the memory of suffering and the potential for imperfection still exist, the moral conscience has reached a point where the impulse toward fraternity overwhelmingly dominates the impulse toward egoism. Kardec describes these worlds as vast, specialized cosmic hospitals, where souls who have successfully navigated the brutal lessons of worlds like Earth come to recover, integrate their hard-won virtues, and consolidate their ethical understanding. The environment is one of healing and collective optimism, where moral crimes are rare exceptions rather than the painful norm. The immense relevance of this category to us is the revelation that Earth is currently undergoing the profound, tumultuous process of transitioning into a regenerative world. This transition is not a sudden, apocalyptic event, but a slow, undeniable cosmic sorting. The most fiercely resistant, primitive and violent spirits who refuse to align themselves with the rising vibration of love and compassion will find themselves progressively unable to incarnate here, being transferred by the law of affinity to other, newer worlds of expiation elsewhere in the universe. Simultaneously, an increasing influx of morally advanced spirits is choosing to incarnate on Earth to aid in this planetary purification. This explains the intensifying global conflict and societal chaos we witness today. These are the final, desperate tremors of a recalcitrant, primitive humanity being violently replaced, in an evolutionary sense, by a more enlightened, compassionate, spiritual population. Those who successfully navigate this transition, choosing love over hate and service over self-interest, secure their place in Earth's next epoch, entering a phase where the greatest suffering is largely replaced by the communal effort towards spiritual and intellectual upliftment. The dense veil, understanding the umbral zone. The umbral stands not as a world in itself, but as a vast, densely vibrating spiritual region, a critical intermediate state, often populated by spirits freshly departed from worlds of expiation who are utterly unprepared for the higher life. This state of spiritual and psychic confinement is the immediate consequence of the spirit's own implacable clinging to matter and its obsession with earthly desires, vengeance, or unbridled selfishness. Kardec's investigations revealed that the umbral is a zone where the individual's mental and emotional turmoil is instantaneously materialized into their environment, creating a highly subjective form of torment. It is not an arbitrary fire, but a prison constructed entirely from the spirit's own unresolved psychological states. Souls trapped here often remain in a painful state of semi-consciousness for decades, or even centuries, unable to accept the reality of their death, obsessively hovering around the material remnants of their past life, the wealth they hoarded, the relationships they destroyed, or the enemies they swore vengeance upon. This self-imposed imprisonment is ruled by the unyielding law of affinity. Dense thoughts and low moral frequencies naturally aggregate spirits into these somber, heavy realms. The escape from the umbral is purely a matter of internal vibrational change, demanding a profound shift in perspective, genuine repentance, and a willingness to sever the corrosive bonds of material illusion. The persistence of spirits in this region is the root cause of spiritual obsession among the living, as these umbral-bound souls desperately seek to satisfy their desires vicariously by attaching themselves to incarnate individuals, proving that our moral choices have immediate, tangible consequences that stretch far beyond the tomb. The cosmic recovery, spiritual hospitals, and rescue. Despite the self-inflicted torment of the umbral, the universe, as revealed through Kardec's work, operates under the principle of divine mercy and infinite help. This is manifested through the presence of specialized spiritual hospitals and extensive rescue networks established by higher spirits and located just above the vibrational threshold of the umbral. These institutions are dedicated exclusively to the rehabilitation, education, and healing of the lost and suffering souls who have fallen into these lower zones. The process of rescue is governed by profound spiritual wisdom. To effectively reach a soul steeped in negative vibration, the help must come from missionary spirits who possess a specific vibrational affinity with the afflicted. Often, these are souls who have themselves previously endured similar experiences in the umbral and therefore truly understand the depth of the suffering. These rescuers approach the lost spirits gradually, offering patient guidance and love, never imposing their assistance, but waiting for the first flicker of genuine desire for change. The true depth of compassion is seen in the selfless actions of the rescuer spirits, who are often beloved family members, close friends, or even reconciled past enemies of the afflicted. These noble souls, having already earned their right to ascend to much happier worlds, willingly choose to delay their own progress, dedicating their time and energy to the arduous task of guiding a loved one out of the shadows. This mutual responsibility, rooted in genuine love, is a hallmark of the higher law. In some extraordinary cases, highly evolved spirits even request permission to reincarnate temporarily into worlds of expiation, not to learn lessons, but to serve as spiritual therapists, social workers, or family members for incarnate individuals who are dangerously close to self-destructing and falling into the umbral upon death, demonstrating that the network of love reaches into the deepest darkness. The spiritual diagnosis, classification after death. Allan Kardec's documentation of the post-mortem process revealed that the period following disincarnation includes a crucial, highly organized system of spiritual diagnosis, often mistakenly viewed by humans as a punitive judgment. Far from being a vengeful trial, this process, conducted by assemblies of highly experienced, impartial spirits, is a clinical assessment designed to determine the precise spiritual condition of the newly liberated soul and prescribe the most effective environment for its continued recovery and growth. The higher spirits analyze the disincarnated based on three fundamental metrics. First, the intensity of material attachment, how desperately the soul still clings to the physical world, its former possessions, and its earthly identity. Second, the depth of moral development achieved during the life just ended, the measurable level of its compassion, humility, and justice. And third, its capacity for adaptation, the spirit's mental flexibility and willingness to accept its new reality as a non-physical being. It is this intense focus on self-created psychological states that often results in the immediate retention of even seemingly virtuous individuals in intermediate zones. Kardec recorded the startling case of a doctor who dedicated his life to healing. Yet upon death, his obsessive attachment to his profession was so strong that he could not accept leaving it behind. He was spiritually trapped, compulsively wandering the corridors of earthly hospitals for years, attempting to influence and operate through living incarnate surgeons. Only when he finally understood that his service could be far more effective from the spiritual plane, inspiring doctors rather than attempting to manipulate them, was he able to detach from this self-imposed professional prison and move toward the light. The hierarchy of wisdom, the celestial worlds. The celestial worlds, the sixth rung of the cosmic ladder, represent a state of profound spiritual achievement, where the trials and tribulations that characterize lower worlds have ceased to exist entirely. The spirits who reach this level have successfully transcended egoism in its every form, living in a permanent, sublime state of universal and unrestricted love. These are the spheres of the true masters of creation, beings whose existence is characterized by vast knowledge, serene wisdom, and limitless compassion. Kardec's accounts describe these highly evolved spirits not as contemplative hermits, but as cosmic administrators, actively engaged in the supreme governance of the universe. They are the great coordinators, supervising the evolution of entire solar systems, managing the intricate complexities of reincarnation cycles for millions of souls simultaneously, and serving as indispensable conduits between the lower planetary systems and the ultimate divine spheres. Their wisdom is so comprehensive that they can intuitively grasp the long-term karmic implications of an action across vast stretches of time and multiple future lives. Despite the almost incomprehensible elevation of their state, the most impactful revelation concerning these celestial beings is their enduring commitment to service. These spirits often choose to voluntarily return to the less developed worlds for focused, powerful missions. They manifest as the great spiritual reformers, the revolutionary intellectual leaders, the groundbreaking scientists, or the profoundly inspiring artists throughout human history, intervening at crucial junctures to inject bursts of moral and intellectual acceleration into the evolution of struggling humanities, acting as tangible proof that spiritual power is inseparable from profound humility and service. Pure perfection, the spheres of divine existence. At the very pinnacle of the spiritual evolution accessible to creatures stands the seventh and final category, the divine worlds, or the spheres of absolute purity. This is the dwelling place of spirits who have achieved the highest degree of relative perfection possible, a state of such profound moral and intellectual elevation that they have completely transcended the necessity of reincarnation. They exist in absolute, flawless synchronicity with the divine will, immersed in a state of eternal, indescribable beatitude. Kardec's extensive questioning of the highest communicants revealed that these purest of spirits are the direct co-creators and administrators of the universe, working in direct and constant cooperation with God to implement the cosmic laws across all dimensions of creation. Their power is immense, allowing them to participate in the direction of species evolution, the formation of new worlds, and the orchestration of cosmic processes that span epochs. Yet the most extraordinary truth is that this absolute power is matched by absolute love. Kardec documented that these divine spirits, despite their supreme transcendence, remain perpetually connected to all of creation, never abandoning the lower worlds. Their influence cascades down through hierarchical chains of less advanced, yet highly evolved spirits, ensuring that their guiding love and inspiration reaches even the most primitive and distant spheres. This means that, in this very moment, an invisible but tangible connection exists between the highest spiritual spheres and your own soul. Every act of genuine compassion, every elevated thought, and every moment of selfless service strengthens this connection, creating a direct conduit between your heart and the pure divine realms. The law of accelerated evolution. Choices define destiny. Allan Kardec's teachings offer a powerful counterpoint to the notion of fixed fate, emphasizing that the law of progress is dynamic and entirely subject to the moral choices of the individual spirit. The duration a spirit spends in any one category of world is never predetermined. Some souls, through intense self-effort and applied moral virtue, can achieve in a few lifetimes what others take millennia to accomplish, while those who resist moral development may remain spiritually stagnant for vast periods. This concept of non-fixed destiny is powerfully illustrated by the documented case of two spirits who died on the same day: the self-serving millionaire who had amassed his wealth through exploitation, and the humble laborer known for his quiet charity to the poor. Despite their simultaneous death, their destinies diverged instantly. The millionaire, clinging morbidly to his riches and former status, awoke in the stifling regions of the umbral, where his earthbound mansion became his spiritual prison for decades. The laborer, conversely, was received by benevolent spirits and guided directly to a regenerative spiritual colony, where he was welcomed to rest and prepare for an easier, more enlightened new incarnation. The critical factor, as emphasized by Kardec, was not their material possession but the moral intent behind the use of what they possessed. Furthermore, Kardec's revelations introduced the astonishing concept that many life challenges, severe illnesses, physical handicaps, or circumstances of extreme poverty are deliberately self-chosen by the spirit before reincarnation. This is not arbitrary cosmic misfortune, but a spiritual strategy. The soul, advised by its mentors, elects the precise, difficult experience necessary to forcefully develop a specific virtue, such as patience, humility, or radical detachment, thereby accelerating its evolution and securing its position on the path toward higher worlds in the next life. Affectionate ties and brief missions. The enduring power of love, as explored by Allan Kardec, is perhaps the most heartwarming and profound revelation of the Spiritist doctrine, asserting that genuine affectionate ties create unbreakable bonds that effortlessly transcend the physical and evolutionary boundaries of the spiritual worlds. Spirits who truly love one another maintain connections that bridge the vast dimensional distances, creating a cosmic network of mutual support. Even if one spouse is destined for a celestial world, while the other still requires numerous reincarnations on a world of trials, their profound love establishes interdimensional communication, allowing for periodic spiritual meetings and unwavering psychic guidance. There are touching accounts of highly evolved spirits choosing to visit the lower, more demanding spiritual colonies, simply to accompany and patiently aid the progress of a beloved companion who needed more time for purification, often delaying their own earned ascension for the sake of true love. This concept extends directly to the spiritual family, revealing that the family units we form on Earth are not random groupings, but cohesive spiritual groups who agree to reincarnate together across multiple lives, alternating roles as parents, children, siblings, and spouses to foster reciprocal lessons and collective growth. This law of persistent affection also unlocks the deep meaning behind the premature death of children. Kardec revealed that many of these young souls are exceptionally evolved spirits who choose to incarnate for very short, intense missions, not to live a full human life, but to quickly bring a powerful lesson of pure love, awaken compassion in their families, or rapidly settle a minor karmic debt through the sacrifice of a short existence. Upon disincarnating, these advanced child spirits frequently become the most powerful and insightful spiritual guides for the very parents and siblings they left behind, illustrating that their brief passage on Earth was, in fact, an accelerated and successful graduation into much higher spheres. The spiritual diagnosis, classification after death. The process of disincarnation is not a chaotic dispersal, but an orderly return to the real world, followed by a meticulous spiritual diagnosis, a necessary assessment that Allan Kardec documented as being conducted by higher-order spirits. This procedure is designed to evaluate the soul's current vibrational frequency and determine the most appropriate setting for its continued development, akin to a cosmic medical evaluation rather than a legalistic trial. The reviewing spirits focus intensely on the residual psychic condition of the newly liberated soul, examining its perispirit, the fluidic envelope surrounding the spirit, as a direct reflection of its moral condition. The density of the perispirit, its luminosity, and its ability to detach cleanly from the magnetic pulls of the earth are direct metrics of the spirit's progress. Specifically, the assessors examine the level of psychological freedom attained. Is the spirit still enslaved by the desires and attachments of its past life, or has it mastered its impulses? This is where the stories of individuals like the obsessive doctor or the materialist millionaire acquire their full significance. Their failure to accept death and their clinging to earthly roles were not seen as crimes, but as acute spiritual illnesses requiring rehabilitation in the low-frequency zones that correspond to their internal state. The assessment is immediate and automatic, governed by the unyielding law of affinity. A spirit whose thoughts are saturated with genuine compassion and selfless service vibrates at a high, light frequency, making it impossible for them to remain in the dense, dark zones of the umbral. Conversely, a spirit burdened by unresolved hatred and deep remorse generates a dense, heavy, fluidic body that automatically syncs and adheres to the corresponding regions, demonstrating that the future destination is determined by the spirit's own self-written inner record, reflecting the exact state of its moral evolution at the moment of passing. Having explored Allan Kardec's magnificent atlas of the 7 spiritual worlds, from the foundational primitive spheres to the ultimate divine realms, the most impactful truth that remains is the profound sovereignty of your own moral choice. Your destination in the afterlife is not arbitrarily decided by external forces, but is the sum total of every ethical decision, every compassionate act, and every impulse of forgiveness you cultivate in the present moment. The 7 worlds stand as hierarchical steps on an infinite staircase of evolution, and the pace of your ascent is wholly and solely determined by the acceleration of your own moral refinement. To aid in this crucial self-assessment, Kardec, through the guidance of the higher spirits, illuminated 3 infallible signs that reveal when a spirit is truly prepared to advance to a higher, more serene plane. The first is the ability to offer genuine, heartfelt forgiveness to every person who has wronged you, a forgiveness that brings an immediate, profound peace and completely eliminates any trace of resentment or desire for revenge. The second sign is the development of a radical spiritual detachment from material possessions, social recognition, and earthly vanities, finding genuine fulfillment in giving and serving others rather than in accumulating wealth or status for oneself. The third and perhaps most vital sign is the cultivation of permanent spiritual joy, a profound inner contentment and serenity that is entirely independent of external circumstances, allowing the spirit to face adversity, illness, and loss with unwavering gratitude for the lesson being offered. These 3 virtues are the visible manifestations of a soul whose vibratory frequency is already aligned with the regenerative and happy worlds. Your eternal destiny is currently being written by you moment by moment. With every moral choice you make, and with the clear map of the cosmos now before you, the ultimate question remains: which direction will your spirit choose to ascend from this day forward.